Hello, everybody. This is Ioana from Be Epic London International Film Festival. We've got another amazing Q&A session with three of our filmmakers this year. Quick reminder, all films are available now on Cinenzo, and you can just get your passes there. They're going to be available until the 22nd of August. So do hurry, and without further ado, let's just get to meet Eric Gordon, who is the director of the documentary When All That's Left Is Love. So we're going to watch a bit of the trailer, and then we're going to go ahead and meet everybody.
My name is Marilyn Gordon. I was Marilyn Kaplan before I married my soulmate, Shelley Gordon. I met your father through a blind date. We just gradually fell in love. He always was a very lighthearted, funny man. We found out that he did have Alzheimer's. He was diagnosed not with dementia, but with Alzheimer's.
We're making a movie about you.
Who said that?
I am.
You're full of shit.
I am.
Am I gonna get paid for that?
No.
It's hard to see someone you love deteriorate the way he did.
There are about 5.3 million people in the U.S. with Alzheimer's disease, and the statistics say that there are about 3 family members taking care of each person with dementia. So there are a lot of caregivers.
I guess the hardest thing about the disease is just watching him disappear.
What's my name?
Charlie Jones.
What is my name?
I don't know.
I'm your son.
You're my son?
Yep.
It's news to me.
You didn't know that?
No.
I've been married to him for 42 years. And it's just not fair to lose him like this.
He was extremely athletic, a good dancer. If I could just have one more dance with him, just one more dance.
For someone you love, you want to do the absolute best that you can, but there'll be times when you get frustrated, there'll be times when you're too tired.
It was not a solution having an aide in the house because I still had to be with Shelley.
Leave me alone.
I never, ever had got a break.
I am trying to survive every day as it comes. I scream, I rant, and the next day I'm back to doing it again.
Because we're not perfect human beings, a caregiver can't do a perfect job.
For every one of us that is working so hard, I told that to my daughter a few months ago. She says, "What do you want, a medal?" And I felt very hurt. Well, she must have thought over what you said.
Great job. All right. Hey, could your daughter speak to mine?
That's the one in New York.
Lovely. So let's meet Eric Gordon. Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
Hey, Joanna. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So you're the director of When All That's Left Is Love, and we get to see you a bit in the documentary as well, I believe. Can you do just a quick, brief intro about yourself and about the doc, and then we're gonna get back to you very soon.
So I'm Eric Gordon. I'm here in the USA and in Florida. And When All That's Left Is Love follows 2 families and a support group as they care for an Alzheimer's patient in the moderate to severe stage of the disease, primarily focused on the caregiver.
Excellent. Okay, and now let's move on to our next trailer, which is Endangered, and then we get to meet the director as well.
Water is a naturally occurring compound that intersects with living organisms in many ways.
The will to survive is the greatest force in our entire universe.
But when handled improperly, water can be lethal.
In 100% of the cases that have been documented, it's only appeared in the male human.
This isn't some study, this is your son's body we're talking about. Children who swim 1 or more times before the age of 18 are 73% more likely to be incarcerated by the age of 30.
We're not going to drop the lawsuit.
because that risks damaging the creature.
Well, then I guess you're just gonna have to live on the edge.
Save your skin. Skip the swim.
He's kind of cute.
He is, isn't he?
Excellent. So let's get to meet and introduce Alex Roten. How are you, Alex?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Same thing if you can. Just a brief introduction about you and your film, and then we'll get back to some more in-depth question after. We got everyone.
Sure. So my name is Alex Roten. I'm a filmmaker currently located in Asheville, North Carolina, though I made that film when still living in Los Angeles. I wrote, directed, and did the music for it, and it's a movie that's sort of a, I guess you could say, it's a women's rights allegory told through the story of a bizarre monster movie.
Excellent. We're going to get back to that actually, but great intro. Cool. And now let's go to our last trailer, which is Man Portable, and we'll get to meet Chad just after.
So you on the run? From the law?
No, ma'am.
So, just out for a hike.
And let's welcome the director, Chad Reininger. How are you, Chad? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay. So same thing, brief intro, and then we're going to get to some question for everyone.
Sure. My name is Chad Reininger. I'm a amateur filmmaker and screenwriter. I live in Los Angeles, currently doing visual effects work and design work for Apple. And yeah, this film was really a fun experience. And I think, kind of started with the idea of living through a lot of the sort of traumatic experiences that have been happening in America, a lot of the violence that we've been seeing, and started getting me thinking about, the possibilities of what one person can do when given technology that is superior and powerful and deadly. So that's it.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get back to that as well. I mean, that actually links into our first question, which is great. First of all, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for doing this Q&A for us and for the audience. So, first question that I like to ask, and as I always say, is one that always sort of fascinates me, especially with independent films, is how did the film actually come about? What was the drive behind it, or what was the inspiration or the motivation? Basically, what were the beginnings of making your films? Just because I feel like with independent films, they're all so original in terms of like stories and ideas. And a lot of the time, because they're so creative, I bet a lot of people are just wondering, like, how did it even come about? Like, how does that even, start? And I'm going to start with you, Eric. Yours is more of a documentary, but I bet it does have a beginning as well. So do you want to tell us a bit about what was the inspiration? How did actually, what was the starting point for your documentary?
Yeah, so I have a master's in film production from University of Miami. My last film was a narrative romantic comedy, and I moved in to care for my dad because my mom was having a tough time. So I cared for my dad for about 6 years, and then things started getting pretty intense. And so I said, Eric, you're a filmmaker, pick up the camera. And at the time, I had obviously no idea. So it originally started with my dad started a program for experimental drugs, we went to the neurologist, and he told my mom and I that there was nothing he could do for us. So we had lost complete hope. And so I originally started as a 10-minute short film about a program of taking an experimental drug. And we turned into a 6-year project. I'm 9 years now with Outreach, but took 6 years to complete. I filmed for pretty much the entire time. And then this was my final project I didn't have a lot of documentary experience. It was limited. So this was my final project from the Center of Documentary Studies at Duke University.
Oh, I see. So quite the journey, and a lengthy one as well. Sort of like a real long one.
Yeah, we're really proud. We're in our 104th film festival, and we've won 60 awards so far. So
that's excellent. So that sounds amazing. How about you, Alex? You did mention something just at the end of your intro? So how did the idea of Endangered really sort of like started?
I don't really. And the goal of the movie was actually make something that kind of can read as kind of a bizarre monster movie. It doesn't necessarily have a political underpinning to it, but the kind of impetus behind it was around all the kind in near the end of 2018, around the time that Brett Kavanaugh was getting his confirmation for the Supreme Court. There's just a lot of the kind of consistent women's rights concerns that come up when Supreme Court stuff happens. And I just kind of thought, well, it would be kind of fun to take this topic and kind of flip it on its head a little bit and put it in the body of a monster movie, rather than it being a kind of hyper politicized, liberal think piece, I guess. So just the idea of, how would people feel if it were put in this context, I guess is how I try to do it.
I see. I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper into that. Just because I feel like with Endangered, there's like a lot of underlying things in there, a lot of satire. I mean, I think the whole human rights and sort of like all the political, they are there and they're oozing sort of like through, especially in terms of a satire. But I'm just wondering, like, how did the actual idea came about? Like, the endangered thing. Was that something that was started before you layered it with, or just from the beginning?
No, it was just kind of to make the story work. So I've been making films and stuff for about 20 years, and usually for very little money, / no money. And this one, we just kind of knew that, having been in LA for a number of years and having some better contacts and wanting to put together a script where we could get some people like Sherry Terry, Cameron Manheim to want to do it, for a day, that it would be nice to put together a script that kind of would rally people behind it in some way, for whatever that meant. And so really just once I started thinking about the idea of how I would approach the topic, everything kind of layered in, because I have family members on every side of whatever aisle, and in designing the movie, it was sort of like, what's a path to take this where I can kind of say what I want to say, but also not be offensive or like super preachy to anybody, because I don't think anybody wants that. So finding, the idea of like endangered species or hyper protectionism for global warming, that kind of thing, there has a tendency for that to kind of go on one side of the aisle, whereas maybe the women's rights stuff tends to be on the other side, argued more. So finding ways of kind of satirizing all sides of it in a way to kind of level the playing field. I think that made the most sense for the construction of the story.
I see. Okay, makes sense. You also wanted to still be invited to Christmas parties, so you had like a really bad.
Yeah, like I said, the goal was not to alienate anybody. The goal is really just to make a kind of bizarre monster movie that had that capability if you wanted to look at it a little bit deeper.
Fair enough. Okay, we're going to get back to that. And Chad, how about you? Man Portable, again, quite a sort of like a heavy subject behind it. How did the whole idea come about? What was the motivation or the inspiration or the mechanism behind it?
Sure. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that it was back in 2018 when I wrote and produced the film with my now wife. And I think that we were living in New York at the time, and having had just seen, sort of 2 years of a lot of excessive violence, especially on behalf of, individuals deciding to, commit mass murder for who knows what reasons. And it started making me think about the idea of just, there was an ongoing conversation about, the availability to technology, weapons of war, more or less, these machine guns, or the capabilities of modifying a gun into a machine gun. And I thought about taking some of that, idea on, but I also felt like it was a little too close to home and a little too much, and it wanted to be exploitive, I think, of some of the tragedies that we've been recently experiencing. So thinking about, looking more into technology, I read an article years ago about just the idea of, carrying a portable nuclear weapon and how the U.S. had the technology. And I was just kind of interested in the technology itself and was doing a little more research. And I was just shocked to find that this program had existed for so long within the US that I don't think many people knew about. That actually, as a major deterrent against the Soviet Union during the Cold War, soldiers, small teams of US soldiers were carrying these weapons, across enemy lines to say, hey, we don't have a huge presence of military here, but we will destroy your airports, or we will blow up your cities, or whatever the hell. And that just kind of shocked me. So I started thinking about the possibility of, like, if one person could carry this in and we have this available now, who's to say that one of these guys that hasn't, shot someone at the naval yard wouldn't be able to find access to one of these weapons, and then what would happen? So I think that's kind of what got me into the head of thinking. And then also, the ability of paring it down to two characters was kind of a fun idea. It's like, could I take a thermonuclear war between two individuals? I think was sort of a fun challenge.
I think that actually worked quite well. Yeah, no, it was very interesting. So are you passionate about remind me, so are you passionate about, these programs, military programs, or just weaponry? Or was it just in the context of what was happening? Because I feel like I had no idea that, you're right. I had no idea that it would exist. That, I knew about, nuclear bombs, like,
Sure.
as big, huge, sort of like weapons for mass destruction. But I had no idea they actually had the capacity of actually being portable, or being sort of like being able to carrying them around. And I'm assuming it would have been quite dangerous as well, in terms of, like, because they're quite unstable.
Well, and it's hard to understand exactly where the technology has progressed over the last 50 years. I mean, a lot of the information you can find is pretty rudimentary. And again, I found some sporadic articles mentioning, Navy SEALs and different members of Special Forces Rangers that were still carrying these things into the 90s. But since the Cold War, it's been hard to find, you can't really find a lot of information about it. And, I had to be cautious about looking for such information, digging too deep into government files type of thing. So, I'm probably already on a list, but I don't want to be on a second list or a third list. So that was a little bit challenging, but it was a little bit of extrapolation, a little bit to understand, okay, this is where the technology was in the 60s to the 90s. There's been no announcement of the denuclearization of this program. So it seems to me that unless there was, a State Department actually put out something that says, hey, we're no longer commissioning these weapons, I imagine they're still in a bunker somewhere.
That's another film right there. So,
and funny enough, Watervliet is the largest arsenal in the U.S., and it's only about an hour and a half, about 2 hours north of New York City. So that's a little concerning, I think.
Right. Okay. Yes, that actually is fair enough. My gosh, so quite a lot of information there. Lots of, like, sort of like sink in, but that's quite interesting that you were like you were able to, and you did a lot of research into it, I can see, and also the idea is quite original. I've not seen anything personally about that, so that's quite interesting, which actually gets me on my next, like, gives me a good spring to my next question, which I think most of you actually have touched upon. What was the biggest challenge in making your films and documentaries? And I always like to pair that with what was the biggest reward as well, just because I want to lift it up and not leave it on, like, let's not leave it only on the challenging part. But let's start with that. So what was the most challenging thing that you had to deal with in making your films, and always the most, rewarding one or the most satisfying as well? And let's go back to you, Eric.
So two things on challenging that come to mind, and I'll keep it quick, is for me, the hardest thing was actually obviously getting through. It took me, I was still filming, but it took me 2 years to really log the footage, because when I first started watching it, since it's my own family, it was really difficult for me to face what was happening. A lot of times I would just leave the camera and let it run. So I didn't even know, exactly what I had at the time, because we had over 200 hours of amazing footage. And then also balancing the love with my mom and dad, and showing that love, and not, my mom can look very harsh in certain situations. So it was balancing the love and her frustrations, so that you could understand that, she loved my dad deeply, but of course, us being in that type of situation it can really drive you, insane, and take a lot out of you. Rewarding for me is, so we've been doing, right before COVID hit, I was doing numerous community engagement screenings. So really for me, this film is about getting resources into caregivers' hands. So I show my film, and then afterwards I bring in experts that talk about all the amazing resources that are available. I'm also fortunate to have a huge community engagement community of sponsors, which goes back to, again, something that was so difficult was the financial. To make a feature film is so expensive. So just film festival submission fees are in $30,000 now. So we had some amazing people that saw the value in the film and who have sponsored the film, thank God. So, but rewarding is all these times I have all these amazing caregivers that come up to me and thank me so much for making this film. And if we can just change one person's life, maybe through our mistakes, not to do our mistakes, and make their life easier and better, then, I change the world. So
it's so worth it. That's a really nice message there, Eric. I think that, and it's very fitting, because I think, the documentary is quite, and I sort of understand as well that would be quite challenging, because it's quite emotional, isn't it? Because you have to relive something that you've already gone through and wasn't quite pleasant. So you have to engage again with it. But I think you've really managed to do the balance quite rightly there. So I think that's fantastic. Alex, how about you? What were challenges and rewards for Endangered?
So I hate to be the person to go after Eric, because I think that his challenges and rewards are much more human and personal. Yeah. Mine are more in the in the financial space, which I don't think is as important. But for us, honestly the most challenging thing was filming in Los Angeles. You write a script that hinges around water. And Los Angeles is not a place known for having many bodies of water, and especially not ones that you can easily drive up to. So finding locations, having to deal with all the rigmarole of doing permitting and Screen Actors Guild stuff. It's a crushing thing to do for a small project, right? Like the cost of a permit for an independent short film and the cost of a permit for a feature-length film with millions of dollars is actually no different. It's not like there's not a scale. So it ends up being that with permits and locations, that ends up making up, more than half of our budget. Whereas we're used to, you want that money to show up on screen, and we're used to filming stuff like maybe in the Southeast where locations don't cost any money. So that was extremely challenging and just hard to kind of make those decisions. But the most rewarding aspect of it was by kind of expanding the scope of the movie a little bit from beyond what we've done for some other stuff. Is just I just enjoyed shooting for almost a week with the people involved. I mean, filmmaking is kind of a family process. a lot of the times. And even if you do a 2-day shoot with people that you don't know that well, by the end of it, you're all kind of family. And I just think that's always a really enjoyable thing to kind of get with a group of people who all believe in the same thing and are all kind of going the same direction. And at the end of it, you're kind of sad for it to be over. So the fully collaborative aspect of filmmaking is definitely the most rewarding.
Fair enough. And I think that's some good points in there as well. I think you're raising quite a nice, well, not necessarily nice, but a poignant concept there where, yes, for independent filmmakers, it seems to be a bit more difficult in terms of like, the practicalities of it, which is why I think a lot of people get driven more, or like they're really focusing on the story or on trying to do things with limited thing, which I think actually is it's a bit, sometimes can be a bit unfair, just because the amount of things that you could possibly do are amazing and great, and there's a lot of potential in that. So I think the practicalities of filmmaking can be daunting, I think, for most independent filmmakers. But I do also understand what you're saying about the sort of like united, on a movie set, when people do sort of like on a film set, when they believe in the message, they believe in the film and the project, there's like really nice connections that can happen there. Chad, let's go on to you. Let's see what were the challenges was, except being on some government lists now. Surveillance. What were the other
down the road challenge? That'll be a challenge for life, I think.
Rewards. Well, I know about rewards. I'm not sure if that's how they're going to reward you for that. But what were for you? What were the challenges and rewards for you?
Honestly, I probably would pare it down to almost the same answer for both, which is confidence. That I think I hadn't made any films since leaving film school, which had been, I think it was 10 years before I made this movie. I'm a writer. I do a lot of screenwriting, but I think being behind the camera, working with actors, all that's completely, obviously 100% different. And I think going into it, we didn't have a lot of time. It's the same constraints as what Alex is mentioning. That it's just you don't have enough money, more or less, to sort of have the shooting schedule that I would have liked to take the time I would wanted to take. But that aside, I think it was more confidence was my issue of like knowing on set, how to kind of maybe sometimes be the bad guy and kind of be like, I think I was so used to wanting to be a good person and a nice person and not maybe try to make everything sort of cordial and smooth on set instead of sort of drilling down what I know I needed to. And so I think that was like a learning experience, just of not having that, and not having the confidence going into it. And then I'd say on the flip side, coming out of it, I feel now pretty empowered to keep creating. I think I was stuck for so long inside the computer, just, again, talking about budgets, like if you're writing a feature film just on paper, I mean, if you're having fun with it, you can do whatever the heck you want, and you're pretty unconstrained. And then when you realize you have to take that to reality, there's this whole another beast you have to deal with. And I think now I feel pretty good about moving forward and trying the next thing, and it's exciting.
That's excellent. And I think it was my fair point. A lot of our previous filmmakers, they all sort of like say, just keep doing things, just keep doing, because that's the way you learn, that's the way you sort of like get better, know more people, and just sort of like, sometimes it's quite hard, just that first beginning, it tends to be, for most, I feel like with most filmmakers that we get to talk, they feel this sort of pressure of starting and they feel a bit out of their depths. But I think challenges are there at all stages of sort of like filmmaking career. But also I think rewards are also there as well. Which brings me next to my next question. What do you feel is what is the most important lesson that you've had throughout your career or throughout your sort of like experience making films, and what makes a film great for you? What do you think in terms of, when you make a film, what is the most important aspect, or one of the priorities, or one of the things that could elevate that or should have most or the main focus? And let's go back to you, Eric.
So what was the first question? I'm sorry.
That's okay. The first question was what was the most important lesson you've learned from your experience as a filmmaker? So the lessons you've learned, and then what makes the film great for you. And also this could be tangled from the from a viewer's point of view as well, in terms of what makes a film great for you as well?
I think that in filmmaking, from what I've learned is, I love what the other directors said. It's always a learning process. You're always keep learning. But I think filmmakers need to. I think something really important for filmmakers is to stay with their vision. You're going to have a lot of people, coming into your ears and possibly distracting you from what your vision is. But I feel stay the course, keep moving forward. You will see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially after so many years it took me. I was in that forest for so long. Passion. I think passion's really one of the most important things. Is you have to believe in your project, and when you believe in that project, your enthusiasm and passion will come through. And again, I don't want to keep. I'm older now, so I'm 54, but money again plays a role. You have to think, what is the end game? How am I going to get that film out there? I think filmmakers really forget outreach is really important. So if you put half your budget into outreach, triple that budget, because you made the film, you want people to see it. So really be aware that don't spend all your money till you get up to post and editing and go, oh my God, how am I going to finish this film? And then more importantly, how am I going to get that film out there? So there are so many great ways to, even if it's a narrative film or a documentary, find groups and organizations and a message. Even Lion King had a lion a group come out and support their film as well. So those are some of the important things I think that I've learned through filmmaking.
Excellent. That's very useful information as well. I think that's going to be actually, that kind of answers one of my last questions too. Alex, how about you? What is one of the most important lessons you've learned throughout your career, and what makes a film great for you? What do you think makes the film great for you?
So the lesson that I think that the most important lesson that I think I've learned is it's kind of it's two parts. So part one is move on when you have what you want, and the second one is trust yourself yesterday. Because I think it's very easy to be in the middle of making a film, and then the next day or a week later you go, oh man, I wish I had done this, or what if I had done this, or did I do that? And I think the reality is that you have to get to a place where you trust yourself in the moment, and then you must trust yourself going backwards, because otherwise it's just going to constantly be a thing where you just never know what's going on. And that's one that I continue to go like, well, I probably was right yesterday. I'm just going to move on from that thought. And then in terms of what makes the film great, I'm not gonna say that any of my films are great. I don't know if that's true, but for me, just in terms of film in general, I like films with a strong kind of point of view and perspective, and something that makes them different. I'm not necessarily super into the let's make a mafia movie because we like The Godfather kind of stuff, but I'm definitely more into movies that, all of a sudden, it's a cartoon or something like that. Just things where choices are made that maybe are a little bit out of left field, but kind of jar you as an audience member and make you have to kind of come back into them willingly. Those are the kinds of movies that I tend to gravitate toward. And I think that when people make strong and different choices, that's the kind of stuff that really elevates my interest.
I see. Make also fair point. And I think a lot of people would actually be on the same page as you. Chad, how about you? What are your lessons and what makes films great for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably echo a little bit of what they both said, that and kind of what I was touching on before, that I think confidence, like being able, like to think what Alex said, being able to trust yourself. And I think it's a kind of a large gamut, right? Where you can feel pretty good about something in the moment and then have, not so much confidence later on. I think for me, it's realizing that all you really have to offer as a filmmaker is your point of view, is your personality. So as soon as you start sort of going against your own instincts and against your own personality, then I think you're kind of in trouble. I think that's, especially I think now, a lot of people are looking for those emerging voices and different perspectives and point of views. And just because, you know, you don't think that you fit into a category that people might want to listen to, I think that just, you know, you being an individual, a human being on this planet, you have a unique experience, you have a unique life. And I think that makes you think differently than other people. And therefore your ideas are worth listening to and worth sharing. So, but in terms of like, you know, regular movies, I mean, I'm probably going to be, you know, sound a little bit, maybe even pathetic here, that I'm kind of a popcorn movie guy myself. I mean, I love everything. I like things that make me think, and I like things that have provocative, have a message, but I like things that are fun. You know, I just like having a good time. I like a ride, you know, and I think that I would always want to sort of have that in any film I would make too, that even if it's something like Man Portable that's serious, whatever, I still wanted to have that climax. You know, I still wanted to have that exciting end, and for people to feel like they had a good time watching it.
Fair enough. That makes sense as well. I think there's a place for everything, isn't it? There's like a huge opportunity there. And I think, you know, being, great in diversity also comes from, you know, or something different does come from that unique perspective that we all have from actually just being different and seeing things differently. Okay, so moving on, I think, to my last questions before the truth or dare. Exciting. Huh? I think I'm gonna go with, do you have like an inspirational figure, or do you have like someone in you know, obviously in film industry, it could be a director, actor, screenwriter, it could be anyone really, or even can be someone that's not necessarily in the field, but do you have someone that sort of like inspired you to create films, or that you feel you are connected in your projects with, or or that informs your work at all? And let's go back to Eric.
So as in filmmaking, I've been acting since I'm very young. I always knew I wanted to act. And through my life, I've been fortunate to meet people that, you know, have come into my life and steered me in different directions. And I've been, you know, I've worked on some big feature films with Quentin Tarantino, picking up cigarette butts on the floor. But through that project, I met incredible, award-winning people in all aspects and sound that came and helped me with my previous project, my narrative film. And within this project, I've had some amazing mentors throughout the way. And I think that's a great point that you're making, is that I love what Chad said, because what I got from that is, you know, you really trust your instincts, trust your heart, and also listen to those people that come into your life and those mentors. It doesn't have to be, you know, a famous person, although I'm sure a lot of us have met them, but those mentors that come in your life can really help change and mold you and to make you the person that you are today.
Fair enough. Excellent. Alex, how about you? Any influences or any people that you feel like informed your films, or that you felt you've learned or motivate you maybe even to get into filmmaking?
The thing that motivated me to get into film is finding a video camera, or seeing a video camera setup at Circuit City in the 90s, when Circuit City existed, and just turning on the effects for like mirror or black and white and going like, you know, this is awesome. But oddly, you know, not exactly, you know, I don't really have the kind of role model relationship, you know, with other people's work. I certainly am a big fan of folks like Terry Gilliam. I like the oddness of their work. I'm a big fan of Frank Zappa, who not really a filmmaker, but has had in his lifetime a kind of irresistible, endless creative drive, which I think is one of the things that I strongly connect with. You know, I kind of go from project to project to project to project, and I think that it's for me, it's really just, you know, the continuing to do it, you know, continuing to push what I can do and continuing to push what the next project is. And I think that, I guess I would say that, you know, like, probably comes from me more from like a musical space than one of film.
Fair enough. I mean, I think that's also valid because I feel like any artistic environment, I think, is sort of like can be quite inspirational and kind of motivational for all of us. Chad, how about you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and again, I think I'm going to reveal a lot about myself here, just as being kind of
Totally.
boring Hollywood sludge. I mean, I grew up in the '90s, and I love Spielberg, Cameron, and Zemeckis, and all those guys. And I would say that in terms of this film that I made has definitely some parallels to a lot of James Cameron movies. I think he was one that seems to have a consistent message about nuclear war and the effects. He grew up, I think, in the '60s and '70s and '80s, and where the Cold War was a much more present understanding for the average everyday kid, right? And I think that in the '90s we kind of got over. I mean, even by the time you go to now, we don't really, I don't think, have that great concern, even though we probably should. We just are sort of used to these superpowers being in a deadlock about that situation. But I think in the '70s and '80s, it was much more of a present idea that, oh my God, at any moment, the all of this could come to an end. And that was, I think, a significant impact on that generation that then carried over to my generation through their work. So yeah, James, if you're listening, I love you, baby. Call me.
I'm sure he is. We're going to give him a call after. But I think that's a fair point. And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people would be. I mean, I certainly was like into Spielberg for like a long time, and James Cameron as well. So I think a lot of people relate to that. Okay, so moving on to our truth and dare. Who am I going to start with now? I'm going to go. Actually, we have like a nice sort of like flow here. So we're going to go with Eric because we've got like an order. I think an order has been established now. So, Eric, truth or dare?
Truth or dare? Dare sounds fun, but dare.
Dare, excellent, perfect. So, okay, so you have to turn your documentary into a feature film. Tell us the story in 45 seconds.
Well, my documentary is a feature film.
Well, like a feature, like a sort of like a narrative.
Oh, a narrative. Okay.
Wait. I'm gonna start. Wait a second. Give me a second here. I'm gonna start the watch. Stop. Reset. Okay, ready?
Okay.
You got the dare, yeah, now. So your documentary is being transformed, but it's being transformed into like a narrative type of film, yeah? Ready, steady, go.
I'm sorry. I have a hard time hearing you.
So you've got the dare, yeah? You know what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah? Ready, steady, 45 seconds, go.
I don't know what I'm doing.
So you've got to transfer. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me better?
I can hear you. What do I got to do?
Okay. So you have to transform your documentary into a sort of like a narrative feature film. Yeah. What is the story? What is the story of the film?
What is the story of the film?
They got to give it like a sort of like a twist as well, maybe with like a little bit. Well, the story is pretty. I think it's quite easy, but then you have to give us a little bit of a twist. Ready, steady, go.
That there's an actress and a woman who is living her life young with her loved one, similar to a Notebook type situation, and then her life becomes turns upside down because her husband has Alzheimer's, and at the end she ends up dying before him because she never went to the doctor because she was only taking her husband to the doctor, so she passes away before her husband dies.
Wow, that's pretty good. 36 seconds, even breaking that was really quite good, actually. Very good. Well done. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I'm very good. That's good. And 36 seconds, look at that. It's like not even although I did start it twice, I will give you that. That was amazing, really amazing. Blast is the same. Okay, so Alex, truth or dare?
I'm going to go with truth, so that way Chad knows what he's up against. And
Yes.
likes the
Okay.
best.
Fine. Truth. Your biggest fear, or your biggest fear as a filmmaker that came true, or that actually happened, or the most embarrassing thing that happened to you as a filmmaker. See, wish you went with the dare now.
Biggest fear that has come true?
Yes. Just biggest fear. It's like if there's not, yeah, it's like the biggest fear was quite a big one, but never came true. It's still, we can still go with that, I think.
And sorry,
the most embarrassing.
Most embarrassing. Okay. Wow. Okay, so the most embarrassing thing that has occurred was that we made a film in it started off as a web series in 2015, and it had a bit of a southern kind of redneck quality to it, and we got some press coverage in Charleston on the Charleston City paper, and the press coverage happened to come out like a right around the same time as the gun violence that occurred at the Emmanuel Church in Charleston, and the people who designed the cover photo for this magazine put a Confederate flag on there, like on our stuff. And a lot of people in the city of Charleston staged a paper return, and it was all, and so we got a lot of kind of bad publicity from people thinking that like we had aligned ourselves with that particular thing. So that was a pretty big kind of nightmare for us.
Okay, that is a big. I give you that. You went with fear.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. My God, although they do say there's no bad publicity, but then again,
I don't. In this case, I'm not sure I believe that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can find some ways to do it. Okay, and Chad, you're last but not least. So, truth or dare? I've got 2 dares to spare here, actually.
All right, I'll go dare. I was gonna go truth, but it seems like you really want me to dare. So.
Not necessarily, but yes, dares are tend to be more fun, actually. Actually, I've got 2 dares you can choose from. Actually, I'm not sure which one I'm gonna make you. No, it's good. Okay, no, we'll do that. So we've got 2. Actually, yeah, you get to choose. I give you the choice to choose. So we've got 2 dares. Either promote your film with a Hollywood presenter voice, those trailer voices.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to give us a log line and present it like that, or you have to make a joke about your film. So you have to create or make up a joke that somehow that might be a bit tricky, but then you get to choose.
Okay. I guess I'll go with the trailer voice.
Trailer voice. Okay. Excellent. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, let me think.
I mean, like this was. I think Eric could help you here. I'm not sure why. I feel like both of them. This was your challenge, Alex. So you have gone with that one.
To say, in a world where one woman must decide the fate of all of New York City will come down to one moment, one decision. It's short. I kept it short.
That's good. No, that was good. That was very good. Excellent. Gosh, guys, you're too good for this game. I have to invent something else now for next ones. Feels like it's getting too easy. Okay, so we're gonna start. We're gonna wrap up very soon. Last couple of questions I want to ask are, what was it? Actually, no. Yeah, the last thing I want to go with before we wrap our thing is, what do you think is an important aspect of your film, or obviously don't get the idea that it necessarily has to be boastful or anything. I personally think all of your films are great and they should be seen. But what are you something that you're really proud or you feel like you've really achieved with your film in terms of artistic value? And then we're going to move to our last question. So I'm going to go with Eric. Obviously, yours is very emotional type of project, but yeah, what was the most satisfying thing that you feel you've achieved with when All That's Left Is Love?
Well, we're still achieving it. I finally, after 3 years at going to the American film market at 1 o'clock, I'm speaking with my sales agent. I signed a contract, so hopefully we're gonna get a broadcast. That's my main goal right now, and I'm really proud. Nathan Halpern is my composer. He has worked on 2 Oscar-winning nominated film documentaries the past 2 years, and I'm just really proud of my project. And I hope everybody, if you get a chance to, please see it. I've spent over 900 editing hours. It's been a 9-year, still working many hours every day for it. So I hope if anybody gets a chance, they could check out my film and send me a DM.
Excellent. Wonderful. Alex, how about you?
The question again? I'm sorry.
The question is, what is the most rewarding thing, or the most, not necessarily rewarding, the thing that you're the most satisfied about your film, the one thing that you liked a lot or you felt you've achieved with it?
Yeah. So I would say that overall, I think my movie, I at least view it kind of as a comedy, but I don't know if that's true really. But tone is kind of a big thing for me, and always being able, like, striving to strike the correct tone is very important. And so whether or not anyone likes it, I don't know, but I do think that I was able to achieve the tone I wanted and have a pretty significantly downer ending, which I really wanted. And so I think those things were achieved. Now, whether or not people like it, I don't know.
We will see. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But good, excellent. So the sort of like you felt you sort of like the tone, and I understand what you're saying. Like, there's about nuances, isn't it, with filmmaking that you sort of like wanted to achieve. And Chad, how about you?
What am I most proud of? I mean, honestly, just from a technical standpoint, I think I was able to achieve my big ending, so to speak. I think that when I first started doing the film, I was really nervous about being able to pull off some of those effects by myself on my own computer system, but it actually worked out really well. I think when I looked at a lot of what other films and TV were doing with, big explosions and nuclear bombs and stuff, and obviously I was not going to be anywhere in the ballpark of that budget, or even really their approach. So I had to be kind of clever in thinking about how I could achieve a very cool and unique look, and try to look maybe, a hair more realistic in some cases than some of what I'd seen on TV. And I think I got there. For it to have something that big happen in such a short movie was I think a good thing for me. It was fun.
Good. I think so too. I think there's quite a lot packed in there too, and you've definitely managed to sort of like put it all in there. So I thought I sort of like I see why you would feel that way. Okay, last questions. Again, it's going to be a couple. It's like 2 questions, couple in one. But last thing we're going to touch upon is, what would be your advice, your one advice to filmmakers? Well, most likely independent filmmakers, really, out there. What advice either that has been given to you, or advice that you felt like you would have really benefited yourself if you would have had the opportunity to somebody to tell it to you, or just what do you think is a really good advice for them from your own experience? And what's next? What's happening next with you guys? Eric, you sort of like answered both of these questions, but I'm going to go back to you again.
Yeah, so like I said, I really believe in your project. Keep moving forward, and you will get to the end and finish that project. So again, trust your instincts, trust your heart. And then what's forward? So I'm starting to write a play, looking into a playwriting class in New York, incorporating music and film, and I'm thinking of starting a new documentary. I'm in the process of it, but Chad hit on that. It's very funny. It's a very political documentary. And I'm probably on one of those lists because I'm on Telegram right now. So I'm a little worried about that too, but we're going to do it.
Look, guys, any trouble, you're always welcome to the UK, okay?
Oh, and I did want to say, Joanna, one thing I'm really proud of is being in part of your festival. So thank you so much for everything. I wish I was in London. I'd be there if we were live.
I know. I wish everybody was here too. To be honest, we really want to go back and get everybody sort of like in a venue in the cinema. And it's always London's a nice place to be. So a nice place to come. So yeah, I hope one day we'll meet. I'm sure we will. Alex, how about you? Advice for filmmakers and what's next for you?
So I'm going to give a piece of downer advice, but it's really the thing that, it's not easy to make films. And I guess in general, the thing I would say to people is if you can not do it, don't. But if you were drawn to it, you're going to do it. But if you can avoid it, do. And then on that note, I would say that the next project for me is we are currently in the middle of working on a feature that we started earlier this year that we're kind of doing as COVID safety stuff makes sense to do it, and also working on marketing a music documentary that we made last year.
Lovely, amazing. Sounds pretty interesting. Excellent. And yeah, I think valid point as well. I feel like it can be quite tough, isn't it, making films? But I think with most, if not everybody, the attraction and the draw is always going to be like too sort of like impossible to avoid. We're like drawn like little flies to like light. Chad, how about you?
I really don't know if I feel like I have the experience to give someone else advice, but I'll try anyway. I mean, I'd say that I feel like I'm a more experienced writer than I am a director, so I'll kind of speak from that perspective a little bit. That I think that trying new stuff, I would say, like, even if you have, you have a love for a certain genre or subgenre, you have a certain passion for a type of film, follow that instinct, absolutely. And then also step out of that comfort zone and do something that you're not familiar with and that isn't your preferred genre. And I think that you'll not only surprise yourself potentially of what you come up with, but then it'll reinvigorate and enliven your ideas going back to the thing that you really love and the sort of bread and butter of your style or whatever. So I'd say, feel free to stretch out, especially in the writing phase when, it doesn't cost you anything, just a little bit of time and effort. I'd say, feel free to jump out of your comfort zone. And, to that end, I've been working on a lot of feature films, screenplays over the last year. I have a feature version of Man Portable that I think is pretty decent. So, if anyone's interested in producing a feature with me, that's certainly contact me. But yeah, that right now I just finished we're finishing up a second holiday movie, which I think is just completely vastly different than anything like Man Portable. And a sitcom and other stuff like that. So just kind of pushing the writing thing for now.
Excellent. That sounds amazing as well. Damn, that's really good. All of you are like very, very inspirational. Makes me a bit jealous. But I'm really happy for all of you, and I think your projects are amazing. And I invite absolutely everyone, just go online, go on Snenzo and watch these amazing films. Leave comments. I'm sure everybody would love to get opinions and know impressions and everything. All films are available until 22nd of August, so there's still time. And in terms of everything else, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you so much for
making
amazing projects. And we're looking forward for everything else. Yeah, take care and hope we'll see each other soon. One day when we can fly.
Bye, Joanna.
Bye. Thanks for having us part of it.